My name is George Wallace from poetryvlog.com. I'm here to take you on a tour of Northport Village, Long Island, New York, the home of Jack Kerouac between 1958 and 1964. It's a beautiful sunny day in mid-September, and as you can see, it's not an ordinary day in Northport, it's Cow Harbor Day, one of the days that this village celebrates 300 years of heritage, going back to 1656. And one of the things that they celebrate here in Northport is the fact that Jack Kerouac lived with the people of Northport between the years 1958 and 1964. Some say Northport looked like Lowell, Massachusetts, Jack's hometown. Some people say that it's because Peter Orlovsky's family was from here in Northport and his friends, and Jack knew Northport through that family. And some people just say that he wanted to be close enough to New York City to be able to get to see his publishers and his friends in Manhattan, but far enough away to keep out of the trouble that Jack was prone to get into when he was visiting or living in New York City. At that stage in his life, that was an issue for him. At any rate, during the 1950s and 1960s, when he received the first payment for On the Road, this was Jack's opportunity to make good on his promise at his father's deathbed to take care of his mother for the rest of her life. Jack used the proceeds from On the Road to purchase their first home here in Northport, and he kept the success of that house in 3 houses here in Northport and through houses in Florida and back up in Lowell, Massachusetts, taking care of his mother. Well, Northport in the 1950s and the 60s looked very different from what you see here. It was a village of working-class people that suburbia had not yet reached. It was a village of baymen, harbormen, fishermen, the workers in sand mining operations, old brick industrial buildings that were either disused or in very little use at the time. So in that way it resembled Lowell in a very tangible way for Jack. Stanley Twardowitz, the famous abstract expressionist painter, who lived here in Northport for many years and continues to have close Northport association to this day. In New York City, Jack and Stanley used to hang out at the Cedar Tavern with the abstract expressionists, Jackson Pollock and the others. But here in Northport, they used to drink right here at Gunther's Tap Room. Jack would come down with a roll of nickels to buy beer with. That's all that Gabrielle would give him to purchase beer with. But according to Pete Gunther and some others, Jack used to smuggle in a bottle of whiskey in a satchel, and he'd go into the bathroom and drink from it surreptitiously. Over there is the trolley tracks. One time Stanley says that Jack laid down in the trolley tracks and said, "I dare anybody to run me over." And that's when Stanley reached down and said, "What are you on the road again?" A story that Stanley loves to tell. Up there is Stanley's studio. That's a very important site. Many times Jack would go visit Stanley in his studio, and they would talk about art and literature and culture. That's the place where one night they dared each other to write haikus with a sumi-e brush, and they both fell asleep on the floor. When Stanley woke up in the morning, Jack was gone, but strewn all over the floor were haikus written by Jack with this ink. Over there, another location. That's where Neal Cassady pulled in his magic bus when he was coming to get Jack to bring him to New York City. He came into Gunther's. Jack said, "What are you doing? Why is the bus still running?" Neal said, "Because the cops are looking for me. I have to make a quick getaway." Over the years, I've given a lot of people tours of Northport Village, people interested in seeing Jack's Northport. And there are a number of places that I consider key spots for Northport and Jack Kerouac. Back in 2001, we had an opportunity to celebrate Jack in a big way with a marathon reading of his book, Big Sur, which was written while he lived in Northport. We had it in 4 cities, including Northport here, Carolyn Cassidy, John Cassidy, David Amram, John Ventimiglia from The Sopranos, Lee Rinaldo from Sonic Youth, and 23 other readers read chapter by chapter a marathon reading of Big Sur. Another spot I bring them to is right across the street. It used to be the Carnegie Library. It's now the Northport Village Hall. Back in the day when it was a library, it was a place that Jack would come to read, to look at different books that he was interested in researching from. But being a shy individual, this is what librarians tell me who still work in the Northport Library system to this day. Jack would stand at the steps of the Northport Library and ask them to come out to him because he didn't want to go in and fear being recognized by the patrons of the library. This is Jack's house on Gilbert Street, the first house that he bought for his mother, Gabrielle. He lived here in 1958 and 59. They moved from here, went down to Florida, and then came back and lived in Earl Court. And the third house that they lived in was Judy Ann Court, up by Ocean Avenue School, where they played baseball every Sunday. I don't want to disturb the people here, but the people who owned this house before Jack, it was Mona Kent. She wrote radio plays, very famous radio plays in the 40s and early 50s. And so it went from one entertainment celebrity to another by Jack purchasing it from Mona Kent. Waterwood's his house on Ocean Avenue. Jack, when he lived in Judy Ann Court, which is up the wooded hill behind this house, Jack would come down the hill, meet Stanley, and they'd go off to Gunther's together to have some drinks and then come home. One night, Gabrielle came to Stanley's house. She was concerned, where's Jack? She didn't see Jack. And Stanley had left him several hours previously. Turns out they took a walk up into the woods, on that wooded hill, and they found Jack asleep with his head on the log. He had made it halfway back to the house, and he was sleeping in the woods. All right, this is the ball field that Jack used to play on.
My name is Bill Shotwell.
You're one of the individuals who played softball with Jack, aren't you? You know
Not
Jack
softball, baseball.
Baseball?
Yeah.
Now tell us about that experience.
Well, he always showed up in his slippers.
In his slippers?
In his slippers. And it was usually around noontime, even though the game began at 8.
Uh-huh.
But he'd make up for that, and he was a damn good player, actually.
Uh-huh.
But his slippers were kind of an impediment when he slid into first base.
Larry Smith, when we'd get out to play softball, he would, he had the pride that an athlete has, but when he would try to catch a ball and screw up, he'd make a joke of it. He'd do a somersault. Pretend he didn't care, but deep down I knew he cared.
While the bulk of Jack's road experiences were behind him by the time he lived here in Northport, during the time that Kerouac was here, he soaked up local working-class culture. He shared his encyclopedic knowledge and experience of the world as he had experienced it with local people that he grew to know and to trust. And he accomplished a number of writing projects and other projects while he was living here, and continued to travel to California, Mexico, to Florida, and places around the world. Among the works during that period which came out eventually was the film Pull My Daisy, this book Big Sur, many haikus, the first of which were published right here in Long Island, in this magazine, Street Magazine. There were Book of Dreams, the cover of which has a picture of Jack in his Gilbert home. By the time that Jack Kerouac came to live here in Northport, he was an aging celebrity, but an icon of youth. A man who was hounded by an unappreciative American literary and cultural establishment. And a man who was idolized by young people, but was too old to participate in their experiences and to share with their understanding of being a young person on the road. Nonetheless, Jack Kerouac, through the course of his life, left behind a substantial legacy, and Northport is part of that. His years on the road, his years here in Northport, are things that we celebrate here today. So thank you for joining us. This is how you hit a ball. Oh. This is how you hit a ball. Of course, Jack was much more of an athlete. Right.